Okay, today I have to make a video for myself and I need to share it with you. It's called Most People Never Build Anything. and here's why. And here's how to escape that loop, because I've been in that loop for a long time. I've been in that loop actually for years, and recently I've started running some experiments in my life and I've had a small degree of success, and I want to share what works for me. If you're stuck in this loop of not being able to click into a state of productive flow and creativity that feels satisfying, this is what's worked for me. I went years, really the past few years, 5 years, really making nothing. And that was after a long time of actually having a lot of creative fulfillment. And finally, I've been able to click into that state of being able to start creating and start making for real after wanting to, after thinking about it for a very long time. So I am a data-driven person. I like to look at what models work in other areas of the world, and I like to apply those models to the areas of my life where things aren't working to try to get them to start working. So I started running some experiments. I started playing with some ideas, and I've had some success. So here is what happened with me. I reached a point where I realized that most people never really build anything meaningful in their lives. And I was more and more falling into that bucket. And wasn't because I was lazy. Most people actually aren't lazy. It wasn't because I didn't have any good ideas. Most people actually have a lot of really good ideas and never build anything meaningful. The reason that most people don't build anything meaningful, and the reason I was falling into that bucket, is because their brain is doing their job. Most people don't build anything meaningful because their brain is doing their job. So let me explain. So we are not designed to be creative or creators by default. We are prediction machines. Every moment, your brain is asking, what's most likely to happen next? And how do I make sure that I'm not surprised by it? And this idea comes from somebody that I had to find on Wikipedia and do some research sleuthing to find some articles and some concepts by him. But this neuroscientist named Karl Friston, and he has this concept of the free energy principle. So stay with me. This is not as complicated as it sounds, I promise. But the free energy principle, simplified, is this: that in Friston's model, your brain is constantly trying to minimize surprise. So in his words, your brain is constantly trying to reduce free energy. So think of free energy as the gap between what you expect to happen and what actually happens. So if your body predicts that your coffee mug is in front of you and your hand finds it, no surprise. The model is confirmed. But if your hand swipes the air, that gap between expectation and reality, that creates free energy. And it's a kind of like cognitive tension in your system that your brain wants to eliminate. So what does this actually have to do with why you can't finish the project you're working on, or actually start the creative thing you want to do, or finish the blog post that you want to write, or why you've been talking about building an app for 2 years, but you've never actually deployed it, right? What does this free energy concept have to do with your procrastination and your lack of satisfaction and your lack of execution in your life? Well, for me, and my lack of execution and my long streak of doing nothing and falling more and more into that category of people that build nothing meaningful with their lives, those two things had everything to do with each other. This free energy concept unlocked something in me, and maybe it won't unlock something in you, but it unlocked something in me, which is this concept that consumption is predictable and creation is not. And your brain doesn't just predict objects, it predicts your own behavior. And if your own behavioral history says, when I'm uncertain, I scroll on my phone, then your nervous system encodes that as the expected outcome when you feel tension or boredom. So you've got the trigger, which is tension or boredom, and the outcome, which is scrolling. So you see, your brain associates those two things, and it creates this syncing. So trying to write instead. So like if I feel tension or uncertainty or boredom and I say, oh, naturally I'm going to write now, or naturally I'm going to code now, I'm going to program my app, or I'm going to launch something meaningful, I'm going to build, right? Your brain flags that as a prediction error, something unfamiliar. That's something energy costly, not because it's painful, but because it's uncertain. So you don't do the thing. Not because you're broken, not because you're lazy, not because you're a procrastinator, not because you just don't have the willpower. It's because your nervous system is trying to protect you from surprise. So here's the invisible loop that you are in and that I have been in, and I'm getting traction to get out of. It's what I call the consumption loop, where you feel discomfort or boredom or fear or chaos, and your body predicts this is when we consume. So you scroll, you snack, you watch, you wait. The point is your instinct is not to take action on something meaningful. Then your prediction is confirmed and the loop is reinforced. And the next time you feel boredom or feel fear or chaos or discomfort, then this is when we consume. Fear, this is when we consume. Chaos, this is when we consume. And over time, this is not just a habit. This becomes part of your identity model. Your body doesn't just expect you to consume, it expects you not to build, not to make, not to participate in something difficult and meaningful. And here's the kind of brutal part that felt particularly brutal for me, is that your brain would rather be right about being stuck than wrong about making progress. Your brain would rather be right about being stuck than wrong about making progress. So how do you escape? How do you escape the loop that requires rewriting prediction, right? Most productivity advice fails because it tries to force motivation on top of a system that's trying to avoid surprise. It's like pushing a shopping cart with square wheels, right? It doesn't matter how hard you push. It's not built to roll that way. And to actually build consistently and deeply and freely, you need to change what your body predicts about you. Not what you hope, not what you believe, what you expect. And so here's what I implemented in my life. Here's how you actually do that. Here's how you change what your body expects you to do. Step 1, you build a cue-based identity loop. A cue-based identity loop. So this is not about discipline. This is something I've been realizing as it's been working in my life. This is not about discipline. And trust me, I'm a very willpower-oriented person. I want to leave no excuses for the universe so that I can look back, and if my life goes the worst possible way, I can look at the universe and say, I tried my hardest, you know I did. But here's the thing, it's not a willpower issue. It's not about discipline. It's about rhythm. When X happens, I do Y, always. When X happens, I do Y, always. It's a cadence. That is the power behind your behavior. That is the power behind the habit, what you perceive to be the habit of your procrastination. When you see a willpower wall, you think that you need willpower to overcome it, but you need to establish a rhythm to overcome it. When I make coffee, I open my notes. After my workout, I record my thoughts. At 8 p.m., I write code, just 10 minutes, right? It's these trigger-based identity loops. You're training your system to expect that building follows certain cues. Eventually, not building is what becomes the weird part. Step 2, reduce complexity. So step 1 is build a cue-based identity loop, right? When X happens, I do Y, always. Step 2, reduce complexity. So Friston's model, this free energy model, doesn't just care about surprise. It also cares about model complexity. So how much your brain has to actually rewire itself to accept new information. So if writing a blog post requires you to reinvent yourself in an image, and then also fight 12 browser tabs, and then also pick a topic to write about, and then also fight imposter syndrome, and then also download a new editor for your writing, you're going to quit. Your mind can't wrap itself around swallowing a whale all at once that big. So to act consistently, the action must feel like a confirmation of identity, not a challenge to identity. So you have to reduce that complexity task. Use the same tools, build in the same place, name your projects simply. Don't try to become someone new. Just continue something familiar. The simpler it is, the more likely it is to become a rhythm that overcomes those perceived willpower obstacles. Okay, so step 1, build a cue-based identity loop. Step 2, reduce complexity. Step 3, reinforce. This is the hardest part. Reinforce through public micro commitments. So when you're sharing something, even a small win, you're not just building in public, you're stabilizing a self model. So I'm a person who publishes, I'm a person who ships, I'm a person who finishes. You're reinforcing this, right? Your brain sees the feedback and updates your priors. Building becomes expected. And you no longer feel like you're just pushing uphill. You're just doing what makes sense. So, final thought. You're not lazy. I'm not lazy. Well, I'm lazy sometimes, but that's not the reason I'm stuck, right? You're just overfitted to survival. So in a world that bombards you with just all these options and algorithms, your nervous system is just clinging to what's familiar. And that's not failure, that's intelligence. But if you want to create, if you want to be the kind of person who builds instead of just consumes, you need to make creation predictable, boring even. Most people never build anything, not because they can't, but because their brain is optimized for not being surprised. If you want to escape that loop, make building the most expected thing in your life. And then the loop works for you.